I think when you get the home stuff right,
Yeah.
work can honestly, to your point, you just have more energy, you're happier, and therefore you throw yourselves into the passion and the stuff. I do it with equilibrium, and maybe that's why I don't have it in my little inner circle, because when I'm happy with the kids and Sarah and my mental health, then, I mean, I've never been so driven about my business, so that's no coincidence.
Okay, welcome to Comeback Kid. We are here with extremely special guest all the way from Sydney, Australia, my uncle Nick Gorman. Hi, Nick.
Hi, great to be here.
So good to have you here.
Great to be here.
So let's get into it. Can you describe your work and what you do?
Yeah, for sure. Firstly, apologise for the raspy voice. It's a combination of jet lag and other things, I'm sure. To be here with you to talk about my business is an absolute buzz. What I do is I run a coaching business primarily called Equilibrium at Work. And what it is, it's a one-on-one coaching business, primarily working with men and women and helping them achieve a better work-life balance, help them avoid potential mental illness potholes, and coach them from that angle. In addition to that, what I also do is keynote present. I go into organisations and I talk on all topics around wellbeing, burnout, work-life balance, and have done this for the last 6 or 7 years.
So what was the catalyst to get you into this? What was your own journey with your mental health that kind of opened up the doors to this profession? So I spent
nearly 25 years in financial markets as a trader and manager back in Sydney, Australia. And all that while, I'd always battled some form of mental illness. So at the age of 21, 22, I had a breakdown when I came back from overseas. And that sort of set up, I'm now 57, so that set up over 3 decades of dealing with anxiety primarily. And then during my life as a trader and working in that sort of combative, very aggressive, full-on environment, I was always battling this in the background. No one was actually ever aware. But that progressed and went on for, 3 decades. And then eventually in 2016, at my last place of employment in Sydney, working for Citibank, is that I developed very bad burnout, which I only really now realise. And that burnout in turn led to very bad depression. And literally in a matter of 24 hours, I went from working in an investment bank to resigning and going home to my wife. And I remember the exact moment when it tipped. It was November 2016, and I was on a dealing room floor in an open environment, and I had 3 of my friends that were laughing at a joke. And I remember I didn't have that ability to laugh. I had no joy. There was I couldn't even raise a smile. And I had this aha moment. Kaz and I was like, right, I've got to go and get better. So I went home to my wife, Sarah, and I said to Sarah, I'm a lot sicker than I thought I was. I've got to go and resign. I've got to get out of this. And eventually I did. Immediately I did. But then I sort of got myself better. I got diagnosed with depression and social anxiety. I finally got correctly diagnosed and correctly medicated. And the silver lining is that I had this idea that I felt that there weren't enough people in society or in professional world that could help someone like me back in the day that wasn't a psychiatrist or wasn't an HR consultant or someone attached to their world. So I set the business up, as a result of my mental illness, wanting to help others that were very much like me. And that was I opened the business in 2019.
That's so amazing. That's very parallel to why I started this podcast with my own journey, wanting to help others. So that's really cool. You mentioned that it was all sort of a secret and nobody knew. What was that like to keep that all on the inside when you're struggling so much and you're trying to perform at a very high level?
When you were talking, the first word I thought of was heavy. And those really close to me knew that I'd had issues ongoing, and I was always quite prepared to talk about it. But you think about back in those days, there was so much stigma attached to it. And so you felt, and it wasn't, Australians are very good at, oh, come on, let's get on with it, particularly men, toughen up, let's move forward and, be resilient. And whereas I'm much more open, and I don't think that defines toughness.
Yeah. So can you talk about that? Because I do think that's really an interesting point.
Around the machismo side or the...
Yeah.
So particularly working in what was such a male-dominated industry is that, we're talking 20, 30 years ago where, the word depression, if that was mentioned, you were hospitalised. That's how dramatic it was. And anxiety was like, well, everyone gets anxious. There was no understanding in my view of how debilitating particularly anxiety can be. But so I got very good. I had this, suit of armour that I would take with me on most days when I knew I was teetering on the edge of having a moment. That feeling.
Yeah.
We all do, right? When you just know you're exposed.
Yeah.
And I felt that every day that got sort of, and it wasn't all the time, come and go. But when I was sort of in the depths, not feeling great, that was so heavy and exhausting. And you're putting on a show and a facade, and it's not like you could hide in an office. You were around people all day. So that pretending was, I don't know whether that's relatable to you, but it's,
Yeah, definitely. I think I felt that way when I was at school, like just, people everywhere all the time, and just kind of, it's this feeling like you're just hanging off the side of a building or something, and you're just like hanging on for dear life, really. So I definitely relate to that. Yeah,
it's that, yeah. And you sort of, it's not even for guys particularly, and I'm really trying to change this through my speaking and keynote stuff, is that when men are really good, if they're in the right environment, where they feel there's someone that they can trust and is not going to judge them, they will share, mostly. But in that open environment, or when it's, there's a badge of honour, or it's, I don't want to be that guy, not many come forward. And I'm sure it's globally, right? It is, of course. But particularly for guys, they struggle with that. So I'm one of my missions is to try and make sure that, we do more of that. We normalise the conversation, particularly for men, around mental health.
Incredible. So what has the reception been like when you've gone in to talk to some of these folks in the workplace? What has it been like?
So the keynote presenting really started about 18 months ago, where I had this idea around going in and talking to groups rather than just the one-on-one coaching.
Yeah.
So
you started with the one-on-one coaching?
Yeah, so for 5 to 6 years, private coaching, men and women, in my office in Sydney or virtually, around the world. In addition to that, I also run coaching programs. I don't know if you ever saw Billions, but people say Wendy out of Billions. I was a bit like her. I go in, I look after a group or cohort for 12 months. Okay. The key being is that the employee gets no feedback from what I do. So that's my point of differentiation, of the originality, is that they will confide in me, but I say to whoever's paying the bill, you're not going to get anything back other than a happier employee.
Right.
You got to trust the process. So, and then an offshoot of that, the keynote presenting. And I thought, if I can get into, and I started, and I dreamed pretty big, Kaz, I want to get into every corporation in Australia and spread the word, and the feedback in answer to your question has just been phenomenal. And I'm not sure I'm particularly good at it. It's more the fact that you're up there and it's the topic that people, they want to hear, particularly from a man, particularly from a guy.
Well, I think you have this like extremely natural warmth that enables people to feel like they can open up, you know?
Thanks.
And that combined with your personal story of how you got to this line of work, I think really would make people feel like very comfortable kind of exploring their own feelings around it. So it's incredibly powerful work what you're doing. I just think it's so cool.
Thank you so much. It's so funny. I think you and I look at the world in the same way.
Yeah, absolutely.
You sometimes feel like you're on, the great Simon Sinek talks about, purpose and what we're doing. And you know, it took me a long time to actually understand that my purpose wasn't necessarily working in corporate. It was helping others. And to get there, I needed to get to the bottom of a few big holes.
So that realization, was it scary or exciting, or when you realized, because I still am every day thinking about like, what is my purpose? And, you know, it's always kind of changing. Like this podcast definitely feels like a big purpose of mine right now, but it's not yet full time, and, you know, like I'm doing various other things. So how did you feel when you came to that realization that your purpose is helping others?
I mean, it feels powerful. Because I remember someone saying to me once, if you can't write down your purpose on a piece of paper, then you got to go back to the drawing board. And I think when I was working in the world that everyone from the outside saw as glamorous and well paid and et cetera, is that what was my purpose? I didn't know, and I didn't want to get high and mighty about it. I just couldn't articulate it. Whereas now I can honestly say, I've got 3 young kids, as you know. I'm a very late father, but 3 beautiful kids, 2 boys and a girl, all under 10. And my purpose now is providing for them by helping others thrive. So it's kind of that's it. So it's kind of, at the end of the day, it's all about my family and my non-negotiables, which hopefully we'll talk about. But in addition to that, it's just, I want to help. And it's not like I'm amazing and I want to be like, but I just want to help people avoid stuff that I know. Not talk about things I don't know about, things I do know, such as mental health and corporate world and stress and burnout. And probably exactly like why you're doing this. It's spreading the word. It's normalizing these conversations.
Yeah, 100%. So what are your non-negotiables?
So I do this on presentation, and I get people to bring their phones in, and I get them to text themselves. Right, okay. So all these beeps go off in the talk. It's really quite funny, but they go through and I say, just give me, because at the end of the day, that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
The way I look at life is nothing else really matters.
Yeah.
Is the most important things in your world at any given time. What are they? You know, are we giving them enough love? Because they're the things that matters, right? That's it. And for me, mine are pretty generic. I've got 4. My number 1 is my kids, quite clearly. 2 is Sarah. 3 is my mental health. Nothing can get in the way of that. And 4 is my really good friends. So they're non-negotiable. So that when I lose my North Star, I start to drift. It's that, okay, where am I at with the 4? Are they getting the love and attention they deserve at the moment? If they don't, then I have to make adjustments. If I start to go down a rabbit hole with my business equilibrium at work, which I truly love and I'm passionate about and I've built it from nothing, I'm really proud of that. But at the end of the day, it's not my non-negotiable.
Interesting.
Do you know, like it's the kids. And that's just me, but I get all my clients and in these talks to say, right, I just want you to have them on your phone so that you can look at them and say, oh, that's why we're here, right? And I get all different answers: faith, pets, fitness. Everyone's got different non-negotiables.
Yeah.
And mine are, as I said, pretty generic. Do you know what yours are?
Yeah, Leah, my dogs, family and friends, mental health. Wish I could say fitness, but not quite there at the moment.
I'm exactly the same. Do you know what, though? It could be non-negotiable. So I'm actually determined now, after coming over here, that I realise that because I've got, really young kids, I've got to be physically healthy.
Yeah.
But that, to me, it's not necessarily that absolute bedrock.
So you have like 3 or 4, is it like 3 or 4 like that those are like the non-negotiables, and then you can kind of expand to like the next layer out? How does it work? Yeah,
so the key is that to realize whether or not the most important things in your world are getting the attention they deserve. And during my years as a broker in financial markets, I lost connection with a lot of those, which I now realize. But the idea is that as soon as you feel, let's say I'm feeling out of gas, and at the moment over here I'm jet lagged and all that. So I know important things aren't getting. I know I'm out of juice. I know I'm exposed. I'm exposed to my mental health. And so therefore I've got to make corrections.
Okay.
Whereas in the past I'd sort of just drift, and then I'd end up having, a depressive episode.
Okay.
Because I wasn't. So now what I do is when I'm starting to feel out of juice, I'm thinking, right, okay, what are the important things? Where do they sit? And then the peripheral or the other things will come. And you know what? They come more naturally. I don't spend a whole lot of time focusing on that because the core is, why am I here? And this is just personal.
Right.
Why am I here? Right. Okay, they're great. I've got all them in order. Now what's the next?
What's interesting is I found a parallel because it's extremely, extremely different environment because when I started my magazine, Drome, I was working from home, not in an office. It was working with a bunch of people. It was all remotely, and it's just extremely different environment. But I suffered burnout from the intensity of the work and like drinking to go to bed every night and waking up with panic attacks and looking at my phone and seeing all these emails and just feeling I was like 20 years old and just feeling like so out of my depth. And, dealing with like big artists and not really knowing what I would just felt a lot of like imposter syndrome. So I'm just seeing like a parallel there. And I'm thinking about my own journey with work. And when I started realizing that, and I haven't thought about it in this way, so I love the idea of non-negotiables, and I'm definitely going to use that now. But I think I've always had this idea of like work being the first and most important and only important thing, and you've got to make sacrifices for it.
Fascinating.
And then when I started getting like a bigger life with a partner and my dogs and this and that, and spending more quality time with friends and family, I realized my mental health and my state and my relationships are the most important thing. And once I started prioritizing that,
above
the work just got better.
Yeah,
because
exactly right.
It just what can you speak to that?
Yeah, I can. So that's kind of the concept. That's the idea. It's that I'm not here to, so let's say you're a client of mine and you say, well, I think my non-negotiables, I'm not here to say to you, well, that shouldn't be or that should be. Work's important. But when I do see a red flag when clients of mine say, my work is it. I'm like, well, that's great. But what else? Is there more? Because I think when you get the home stuff right, work can honestly, to your point, you just have more energy, you're happier, and therefore you throw yourselves into the passion and the stuff. I do it with equilibrium. And maybe that's why I don't have it in my little inner circle, because when I'm happy with the kids and Sarah and my mental health, then, I've never been so driven about my business, so that's no coincidence. Yeah. Maybe if I looked about it like you did previously around work being it. Yeah. That's when burnout. That's when there are no boundaries. That's when, your weekday work blurs into your weekend.
100%.
And everything else gets left and it's collateral damage, or it can.
Yeah.
And they're the important things in my world. Yeah. Are people. Yeah. and pets and your, things that are, not just. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Relationships. Yeah. I think looking back at those times, I was so lonely, and I still have a bit of a phone problem, but I, just scrolling on social media and whatnot that I'm really trying to get away from because it's impacting my mental health. But at the time I was really glued to my phone and just like constantly on my email, and it was like a really, really lonely time. So even though the work was happening at a high level, I wasn't present for any of it, So looking back, I had these like big moments, and I don't know, I was so like disassociated from myself that I couldn't be present and absorb it. And now when we do events and, we have parties to celebrate the magazine coming out and whatnot, I feel like I can really be there for it. Yeah,
I do. So I part of my presentation is that I say to people, like talking on burnout, right, which we've both experienced. It nearly killed me. My burnout was so bad that I get either clients or people in the audience to do a self-audit. So an awareness of, right, we know what burnout, because burnout to me is a silent killer. It's creeping up. It's in everyday parlance, so much more. And people don't realise how bad it can be. And so I get the audience to go on a self-audit, understanding where they're at. Are they out of juice at the moment or they're not? Because my point being is that you're setting yourself up if you're constantly out of juice. So, that self-reflection, what you had during those days and when you were self-medicating, etc., is that realisations, that, wow, okay, I'm more irritable, I'm more tired, I'm lacking empathy, I'm lacking creativity, I've got cognitive impairment, all the classic signs of burning out, right? Okay, that's me. So I'm out of juice. That's the awareness piece. The idea is that if you know where you're at, then you can make adjustments. As soon as you don't know where you're at, you can't do anything about it. You just coast like I did back in the day. I would just go along and there's no self-awareness. Okay. And maybe you had that during that really hard time, when you're isolated and no interaction.
No self-awareness and not envy, just feeling resentment towards people who had their lives a little bit more fleshed out and their non-negotiables up front, because I was just like, no, it's work. Like, it has to be work. Yeah. You have to just put that first. That's the only thing that matters, is like external accolades and validation, and people, telling you that you're doing a good job at work. So interesting. And
then the imposter syndrome and all those other attachments, we're trying to prove. So, I mean, it's almost worth turning that around and thinking, well, it's Leah and it's my dogs, it's my headspace and my family and my really good mates. Yeah. That's where I begin. Yeah. Right. And it's not for everybody, right? Yeah. Everyone will have their own lives, but I think for you and I, that's a really useful thing to start. Yeah. Where's my North Star? Absolutely. Is it my job? Is it equilibrium? Do I want to turn this global? And yeah, of course I do, but not at any cost. I'm not putting the other stuff on the line. Right. And I'm convinced that, to your point, I'm much better at what I do now, knowing that I've got my non-negotiables in okay shape. Yeah. So at a certain point, are you like, do you have other non-negotiables for like, do you not check your email after Friday at 6, or is weekends like family time only, or friends on Sunday, or like how do you structure it so that you implement the non-negotiables into your life? So when I'm self-aware that I'm running out of juice, right, like probably at the moment, then I have to make some adjustments because I'll start to see impacts on those things that are most important to me, right? And so you can do a number of things. For me, and I talk to this, is that what's really effective, I try and preempt things. Like when I know I'm going to be like jet lag for a long period, I know I've got to put effort into, I call them the assets versus the stressors in our life. Because we've all got crap in our life. We've all got stressors. So I think, what am I doing to counterbalance them? If they're not counterbalanced and are running deficit for too long, there's going to be problems. And the problems are, it's going to result in my non-negotiables not getting the love they deserve. So that's the equation. So I go back and I say, right, what makes me feel good? What fills my cup? What do I need in addition to the exercise, which is, understandable. We all understand it. The science makes you feel good, etc. It's hard to do. But cold water is my thing. Swimming? Yeah, or shower. A shower. Cold water. Okay. A jolt. And not like, Wim Hof is the global phenomena, right? Talking around ice baths, etc. Yeah. I'm not referring to that. The single most effective technique, I suppose you can call it, the thing that has helped my mental health more than anything else, in addition to the medication and getting correctly diagnosed, is cold water. Wow. Okay. Yeah, it's totally changed me. And with that, I haven't been able to do it here other than cold showers because I'm away from, Right. But that idea, and if you don't mind, I'll explain, because I often get asked, by people, they say to me, why do you find it so good? I was going to ask, yeah. Yeah, because it's horrible. It's free, nothing works, right, particularly in winter. Yeah. And our pool back home at the moment's down to 8 degrees, right? And I'll swim every day through winter. That's not ocean gets down to 11 or something.
Yeah.
It's cold. I'm not in for long. But my psychiatrist once said to me, because I asked him, I said, I don't understand why I'm not in for very long. Why is it good for me? Why do I feel good? And he said, you can't be thinking or distracted or flat or anxious at the exact same time as you're feeling pain or you're freezing cold. Oh. So it's not possible. We don't have that. And I don't need to be a psych and understand the science.
Yeah.
He laid it out so simplistically for me.
Yeah.
That, Nick, you go between, it's just this little jolt in between one and the other.
Yeah.
And that's often enough to break that cycle of stress or distraction or focusing. Okay. It's just where your body, it's diversion therapy. You are freezing for a second. Mm-hmm. Or you hurt yourself for a second. Mm-hmm. It takes everything, all your thoughts go to that spot.
So how long do you have to do it for to get that effect?
When it's really cold.
It's 2 seconds, okay?
It's 2 minutes.
Asking for a friend.
Right, no chance. No, but you know, the idea is that this I know. You never get out of it and say, I wish I didn't do it. Okay. Right? Okay. The hardest thing in your situation would be a shower. Mm-hmm. Brutal. But my goodness, give it a go for 4 days. Okay. And just see. Because it's not pleasant. Yeah. It's horrible. But it's the best way to start your day. Okay. It is because it's, and you'll always feel virtuous. You always feel, wow, I'm so glad I did that.
Right, like you feel like you've done something good.
Yeah, I'm amazing.
Yeah, it's probably the same kind of science as like making your bed. Like I started making my bed every day and just getting something done like the second you get up. That obviously making your bed is a lot easier than taking a cold shower, but maybe it's the same science of like getting something done,
accomplishment
right away, that you just feel like, okay, cool.
Yeah, your day's off to a positive start. So I read so much stuff on this, you know, and I love when clients come to me and say, look, I'm not doing the cold water, but I have changed this. This is something I'm doing, which is, it's not, you know, my bag of tricks usually, and it's making me feel, whatever it is, might be making your bed. Yeah. But starting the day, I mean, you and I both know when we've been in low times, what do you want to do? You want to stay in bed.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it's like even more extreme with kids, but for me, like my dogs have changed my life in that the only times I really feel like depressed anymore is when my dogs are away, like I don't have them, because they force me to get up at a certain time, feed them. Like it just takes me out of my self because I just have to do that. And it kind of functions the same way my medication helps me just like get up and like do things. Because my problem was just with the depression, I would just not get out of bed, not move, not, you know, it's like, so having like responsibility has helped me so much. Just get outside, get exercise, go on a walk, like, you know, and then my mind is full of like, did they go to the bathroom? Did they get fed? Did they do this? You know, so I can't even think about myself in that moment because I'm thinking about taking care of something else, you know? It's
that also, there's part of your purpose.
Yeah.
Now, that might be someone else might listen to that and go, well, that doesn't make sense to me, but that doesn't matter.
Right.
So, as I said, I became, as you know, a dad pretty late. And that's it. You know, when I feel like I'm wobbling, which, you know, to be honest, I had a moment on this holiday. And all I did was focus on, for whatever reason, my middle boy. Oh. And just thought about Oliver. And that was my North Star. So to your point, you know, when they're not here, as crazy as this sounds, I kind of feel a little lost, a bit like you with your dogs, right?
Yeah.
But that they're part of my purpose. Of course they are, right? But when someone else is reliant upon you, or you know you've got the back of someone, or you're looking after somebody, or whatever, that's often enough to get you over that hill. When you're alone and you've got no one, oh my God, I mean, we both know about that. That's a lot trickier. That's when you really withdraw. Yeah. But to have connection, whether it be through your pets or, you know, kids or whatever, I'm with you. It makes such a difference, my God. Yeah. And then there's accountability. It's all around accountability, right? I don't get up, those dogs don't eat.
Totally. Yeah. It's like you just gotta like suck it up and do it.
Totally.
You know? Yeah. But there's a line between, I don't know, like, I struggle sometimes to find the line of what is self-care and then what is letting myself indulge in things. Like, is lying in bed self-care, or is that actually letting myself indulge in something that's not?
Yeah, it can be.
Do you know what I mean?
And, you know, I got a great piece of advice. I went to a health retreat once, and I love sleeping, and I'm a good sleeper, but I need my sleep for my mental health.
Yeah.
And she said to me once, don't feel guilty about having a kip or a nap. When your body wants to sleep, you want to sleep.
Yeah.
If you can, right?
Yeah.
Within reason. But sometimes it is self-care, which is important, you know. But for others, it's, no, they need, you know, 5 a.m. wake-up call, you know, running up hills and whatever. Everyone's different.
Right.
But it can be both, without doubt. Right. It's the one thing I look for with my clients when I see, so I look for red flags initially.
Yeah.
And if I feel the red flags, if I'm doing one-on-one coaching with someone, I've just met them.
Yeah.
And my coaching philosophy is, I need to understand Caroline.
Yeah.
Right? When I understand you and your story, then I can coach you.
Yeah.
But until I understand your challenges and whatever, there's no point. So I ask a lot of probing questions. And I'm always asking them, you know, what's your routine? What does bed mean to you? Is it a hideaway, or is it just you need, you know, all these different probe. And then you start to understand that, I mean, we're all so damn different. But what works for them might not work for me. So I can't preach and mentor as such and go, well, Caroline, you should do this.
Right.
No, I'm honest. I say, have you thought about doing this? Is that there's an imbalance there. There's a red flag. But if that red flag is like quite really red as around their mental health, where I'm concerned about them, then I will direct them to a specialist.
Okay.
And that's out of my remit.
Okay.
But then I'll say, I won't let you down. I'll stay with you on all the other parts of your journey.
Right.
But on this head stuff, it's beyond my capability. And the amount of people that I've had to direct to other professionals is quite stunning.
Right. And it helps build them a team around their mental health.
I call it the table of life.
Yeah. Nice.
You know, you fill up those seats. Make sure you've got the people around you. You know, lock them in. I've got Sarah, I've got my psychiatrist, I've got, you know, my kinesiologist, I've got my, you know, my mate to go running with. They're at my board.
So what do you do if you don't mind talking about it, you don't have to, but when you know, come on a big trip and there's jet lag and you're not with your kids and there's so much going on, how do you stay grounded, and how do you kind of ride out those moments where it feels like, whoa, this is getting a little wobbly?
Yeah, it's not easy. Right. And this trip's been very smooth sailing, so it's been pretty cool. But on most parts, I have to force myself to either get into cold water. I need to snap out of it. Not like in a just snap out of it, you idiot. Right. It's more, I need to literally snap out of it.
Yeah.
I need to either be cold, I need to divert, I need to... Okay. So I carry around a spiky ball, Kaz.
Okay.
Right, that I get people to use during public speaking primarily.
Okay.
And it's the same concept. And when you're struggling or you're about to speak and you're nervous, right, it's the same concept as the cold water. If you have one of them in your palm of your hand, this is from my psychiatrist.
A spiky ball?
Yeah, like we have them. You don't have them here, but they fall off trees back home. And they're spiky. You know, you might have them. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. And so you squeeze the hell out of that in your palm, under the table.
Okay.
Or whatever, in your pocket.
Yeah.
And it's that jolt. It diverts, right, your headspace to something else. And it might not often be enough, but often it is to just get you some momentum. I've been using one of them here. No one knows. You're the first person I've told.
That's amazing.
Right, where I'll be squeezing it at a dinner or something. I'll feel like it just, you know, that feeling where you're getting a bit hot. You know,
yeah.
Okay, well, that just, okay. All it does, it's rewiring my head for a millisecond. Right. So I do that. If I can't get access to a cold shower, I will splash my face with cold water.
Okay.
In a sink, wherever.
Yeah.
So you can see there's a commonality between the two.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a shock.
Yeah.
It's that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And on these sort of trips, I don't get the chance to exercise, which is not great. But sleep is the biggest.
Right.
If I'm tired, I'll go and sleep. You know, someone asked me recently what it felt to be depressed. And I described it as like having permanent jet lag. That idea, my body clock's all over the place, you know, withdrawing. Can you kind of relate to that?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
Yeah. Absolutely. So it helps with like depression tendencies and anxiety tendencies, the cold water and the squeezing the spiky ball and
they're
like
just
that.
little things, right?
Yeah.
Now for other people, because what you try and avoid is small talk, you know, conversation when you're feeling flat. It's hard, right?
Yeah.
And so, and sometimes there's the other thing I wanted to say, and I've done this more recently, and I've found this is working for a number of my clients, is that this concept of just accepting it, like sitting with, let's say it's anxiety, where I feel it, right? Because it's not been depression, it's just been, I've been anxious, right?
Yeah.
I just say, well, of course I'm feeling anxious.
Yeah.
I have travelled the other side of the world. I've left my children behind for the first time ever. We've been out partying a lot. You know, of course I'm out of gas. Like, it's not why would this be a surprise?
Yeah.
I'm talking like in the third person, you know.
Yeah.
Why, Nick? Why? Because it shouldn't be. Of course I'm going to be exposed. And my point is that that's okay and it will pass.
Yeah.
It will be okay. It might be 24 hours, it might be 2 days.
Yeah.
But what I do know from having this since the age of 20, 21, I'm 57, is that I know it passes. So it's called acceptance therapy. It's that idea of just sitting with it. And it's harder than what it sounds. But I've found that there's been some really good results from clients of mine that just I say to them, don't beat yourself up. Of course, you've got a young born, you know, you've got a baby that's been crying. Of course you're anxious.
That just hearing you say that makes me go, you know, just like, yeah, that makes sense.
And sort of that, don't you reckon that idea of like, I'm okay with that?
Yeah.
Now that's not going to work for everybody, but sure as hell helps me. And I read that there was a acceptance therapy piece that I read, and I was like, wow, that makes sense. Just sit with it, just accept it. And it's that idea of course I should feel like this, not like, oh my God, here it is again. Oh no, what am I going to do? Oh my God, it's getting worse. Everyone can see my heart. You know, it's that, and then it's, but I know I'm out of gas. I've been working so hard. My kids have been up. I've travelled the outside of the world. I'm just going to sit with it.
So you sit with it, and then what is like the next step?
It's just a time thing.
Okay.
Yeah, it really does take time.
Okay.
And then, but it has become far rarer these days because of my management of it.
Right.
And acceptance, maybe.
Yeah.
And know it's coming. That self-awareness. It's when I was back as a broker, I wasn't doing any of that. What I would do is self-medicate, right? And I'd go party. And everyone thought, my goodness, you're the life of the party. You know, no one would pick it. The amount of people that come to me now, they read all my stuff and see what I'm doing. They're like, that's you? When I worked with you, you were the most, you know, happy-go-lucky. And yeah, it's exhausting trying to be someone you don't. I'm sure you can relate to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It just feels so much better to be living authentically.
So
obviously.
True. And it's hard at first, right?
Yeah.
Because who will judge me? I won't get that job. She won't love me. You know. So interesting point. I was talking to my wife Sarah about this last night. The role a partner plays in this is really important. It's that, and I say this all the time, if you are feeling like you're struggling, it's so unfair to your partner if you don't share the load a bit.
Yeah.
Bring them in, rather than think, I don't want to share it with them because I'll burden them. Most times, 9 times out of 10, they want to be burdened.
Yeah.
They want to not walk on eggshells. They want to be in the tent, I call it, with you.
Yeah.
So that requires, you've got to be brave, and everyone's relationship will be different. But Sarah says to me, Nick, I have no issue with you having a mental illness. I've got an issue if you don't talk to me. and we've got a real issue if you hide it from me, because I'm not buying into that, but I'll support you. So when I'm struggling, I say to Sarah, I'm not going great. Give me a couple of hours. I'm going to jump in the ocean. I'll be back.
Okay.
And she's like, I got you.
Right. Amazing.
You know?
Yeah. I feel like something that comes to mind from this conversation is just the tools that you have. It's like this massive tool belt where you just have all these different tools of like what to do with the squeezing the ball and the cold showers and being able to have a conversation with your partner about it and acceptance. I feel like I'm still building that. I feel like I have this big tool belt and it's like mostly empty, and I'm like, I don't know what to put in there. You know what I mean? Like I have like opposite action, I guess. I have a couple, there's like a saying in AA that's more will be revealed, which I always love because I tend to future trip and spiral, and so more will be revealed. Like we don't know, like more is going to be revealed. You know, I love that. There are a couple sayings that I really like, but I'm still building it. I'm still figuring out like what works for me. So I love this. I'm gonna try a cold shower, and
it's like putting a tapestry together.
Yeah.
Like it's, you know, and when I work with clients at first, I say, right, to understand you, I've got to understand your story. Yeah. This tapestry, these pockets, right? Yeah. I call it the stuff that helps me is a toolkit for self-repair. Mm-hmm. It's that thing around digital discipline. Mm. It's around what I do with my cold water. Mm. It's around what I do with my meds. It's, you know, if I miss my meds, my goodness, can spiral. Yeah. Right? Yeah. But everything, it's to your point. When you got them in front of you, maybe the priorities are the priority is off. Like what should be at the top of the queue is your headspace above your work or whatever, you know. But you put things in what works for me. I'll try I'll try the cold water. That you know, I'll sweat. I mean, sweating exercise is so I started to row. I did a lot of rowing. Nice. And that when you bust yourself, what do you notice when you're exercising? You're not thinking.
No. Yeah.
You're exhausted.
You're just like, ow.
You're hurting. It's that diversion. It's releasing the good chemicals, right, Kaz? Mm-hmm. You know, that pushing yourself, because in these talks, I give them a toolkit for self-repair around discipline, digital discipline. But exercise is number one.
Digital discipline as in?
Keeping your phones out of your bedroom.
Okay.
Yeah. They can't go in your bedroom after 9 o'clock.
Okay.
Sarah and I, we contract with each other. Okay. Because I was like you. I'm scroll. What am I doing? Yeah. Well, why am I doing this? What am I about to miss? Yeah. What's happening out there? What do I need to know? Yeah. And it's really hard because we know what it's doing. We've been controlled. But I get audience to show their hands, you know, who sleeps with their phone next to them? 95%. And I say, why? No one gives me an answer. Maybe one person will say, I've got an ailing mother. I go, great. Awesome. Totally warranted. Yeah. What about the rest of you? And they feel like fools because it's impossible. No, it's not, sorry, but it's very hard unless if you've got someone there with you who buys into it with you, you make a contract together, which Sarah and I do. Yeah. These phones don't come in the bedroom after 9.
Okay.
I rely on you, you rely on me.
Nice. You've given me so much food for thought.
I'm so pleased.
Things I want to implement. It's great. This podcast is sponsored by Toast. Toast beverages are alcohol-free sparkling beverages made with all natural ingredients, including white tea, white cranberry, and ginger. Crafted by a team of culinary experts, Toast imparts the characteristics often found in alcoholic beverages, only without the alcohol. Equally as satisfying as a daily refreshment as it is paired with fine dining, Toast creates meaningful and refreshing drinking experiences that are perfect for every occasion. Whether it's a large gathering or a celebration at home, Toast can be enjoyed anytime, anywhere, by anyone.
You know, it's funny. It's go back to this idea of our purpose. I was thinking as you were talking before, what you're doing here, as I understand it, is part self, right? Mm-hmm. But it's also that you are clearly blessed with a great deal of empathy, right? Part of this is helping, right? And I'm wired. I mean, we're from the same, you know, family. You know, I'm wired very similarly. I get great joy. So we all feel good when we help others, right? There is a chemical release in our brain that makes us feel good. This in part will make you feel good, right? Because you are helping others. People that listen to this, you know, how many podcasts we have put in front of us? I get recommendations every week, right? And I'll know within 2 minutes whether it's going to be useful for me. But when I know I'm lacking something, I search for something like this, or something where I'm hearing from someone else that's very like-minded, or, you know, well, that's how you got through that, or whatever. But for you, I'm sure, and I'm guessing, but you must get a buzz. You said it at the start of this podcast, from doing this, because it's again, I don't want to sound like I don't know, that we're on a mission, but it's spreading the word, right? It's giving people a chance, a platform. And I was listening to some of your podcasts. They get a chance to be able to share, even though they're sharing with thousands of people. Isn't it amazing the intimacy you get?
Yeah.
You know, it's so powerful. So I'm convinced that part of my purpose is it's in what I said. It's helping others, or getting the best out of it, helping others get the best out of themselves.
That's
so
beautiful.
that they can cope,
yeah.
and that they in turn can protect their loved ones, and see signs in their loved ones where, wow, that doesn't look right. I better listen out. I better check.
Right. Because it seems like what you're doing is the expression, you know, you can give someone a fish, or you can give someone a fishing pole, and you're really giving people the opportunity to find within themselves what they need and continue to supply that for themselves, as opposed to just giving them advice, you know, that it's like great for a session, but then they don't have the tools themselves. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
It's that one of the reasons I started doing or this because, as I said, the first reason was I felt I needed someone like me back in the day. But now, you know, I'll have clients that stay with me for 4 to 5 years.
Amazing.
Oh, it's incredible.
Yeah.
And you say to them, I don't want to just become part of you where you can't release me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But the ones that stay that long say, no, I just need to be realigned every now and then.
Exactly.
I don't, and I won't come. It's like my psych said to me once, Kaz, don't just come and see me when you're feeling horrible. Come and see me when you're up and about as well.
Yeah.
Because, you know, speaking to a broken you every time, it's like, so I say to clients of mine, I don't want to just see you when you're struggling with something at work, or you've got a bully at work, or you've got a self-medication issue or whatever. Just come and see me and sit and talk.
Yeah.
And then I can see progress. But I think the key to I'm big, conversation is the thing. Connection is our thing. We're human, right? We need connection. When we're lonely and withdrawn and COVID presents those sorts of things, that's when we see spike in a lot of the issues. But connection's the key. So I try and get people in a room and just say, right, nothing's off the table. And I know the conversation will make them feel better if they feel like it's trusted and confidential. And if they're not lying on a couch, or they're not, it's not work related.
Yeah.
It's that independence that gives it such power.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, 2 more questions, if that's all right.
Go for gold.
The first one is, how can we find you and support you? Is there an Instagram? Is there a website? What's the best way?
So, sort of ironically, LinkedIn.
Okay.
That is the center of that's where I get nearly all of my work.
Nice. I just made one.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Word of mouth. So I try and, as you'd probably realize, I'm not that skilled in the area of that self-marketing. In fact, it's my weak spot. Sarah helps me, my wife. But LinkedIn's the most powerful thing. My website is www.equilibriumatwork, which is all one word, .com.au. I'm based in Sydney, but I have clients from Florida to the UK to a coffee trader in Uganda, like all over the world. So a lot of And I say to clients, when they reach out to me, I say that I'm just going to give you a chance to talk. And we're going to start somewhere, but we will finish somewhere very different than what you expected. Because there will always be something at the bottom of what's not right in their life. Whether it be career direction, whether it be a relationship, whatever. If you ask the right question, then you'll learn. So that's the best way. The website and through LinkedIn. I do a bit on Instagram, but we've got this clash of worlds going on with what we're happy with our family, but we want to disconnect that. But you're fortunate enough to have been a few press articles back in Australia, which is in the business world, but around, I want to be, I'm the coach in the city. That's Kaz. That's the way I look at it, and I just feel there aren't enough people doing what I'm doing, but that's how they can connect.
Great. And then the last question, which I ask every guest, is what does the idea of being a comeback kid mean to you, and in what ways are you a comeback kid?
One, when I hear the word kid used next to my name, I'm quite thrilled. Feel like my use by date might be beyond. When I knew you were doing this and researched it, and when you reached out to me a while ago, one, I was so proud of you, because the world is full of lifters or leaners, right? And you're a lifter.
Thank you.
Because there's a lot of people that have great ideas, and it's so funny. Analogy, I did a black tie boxing thing several years ago, and I always wanted to have the courage to be able to get in a ring and without, and really
a black tie boxing?
Yeah, it's a boxing night for corporate.
Okay.
So I fought another guy. And I remember, and it was the most harrowing, extraordinary experience, and what I felt like something I could never do, but did, and loved it, and the adrenaline and all that sort of thing. But why I'm telling this story is I'll never forget the doctor who checked me before the fight. He said to me, 99% of people that say they want to get in the boxing ring never do. Right? And it really felt good. It's that idea of, kind of this. A lot of people would talk about doing something like this. Yeah. But they don't. Yeah. So you're setting that up, right? So I'm so thrilled to be part of this. Slightly different guest, no doubt, to what you used to. But the idea of what it means to me, and, it doesn't matter whether it's a comeback adult, comeback kid or whatever. I feel like I've been given a second chance to not set the record straight, not anything, just use my struggles to help others. And it is so clear to me that that's never been needed more. There's so many lost people, disconnected people out there. So to be part of this and to be a wider audience and an international audience is such a thrill. So thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here, Nick.
Pleasure. Thanks, Kaz.